So here we are in January 2016, and I came back from India a whole new man. So, how did things fare for me? Socially, it translated so well. Academically, it was a little bit mixed, up and down, because I did come to find that even with the new changed me, the chemical engineering department where I was at UCL, it just wasn't designed to give me the understanding needed to save the world, to give me the understanding that I wanted. But even if it was up and down, it's a big improvement from the almost consistent downs it was in the years before, am I right? So let's start with something positive, right? So in our degree, we actually had a minor, similarly to how American degrees have a minor in a different subject. So my minor was in advanced sustainable systems, so obviously not completely different. My otherwise super unhelpful personal tutor actually decided to do something helpful this time around. They emailed the professor of this module, Advanced Sustainable Systems, and briefed them on my situation, that I'm neurodiverse, etc., might need a little bit of extra guidance, and to just keep a little eye on me. And man, that made such a big difference. He didn't even give me any extra help or anything like that. He just built a rapport with me, and that made a world of difference in addition to actually being a good teacher, unlike most of those in the chemical engineering department. What's even better is that this professor was an American, specifically a Californian. Now hold your horses right there. I ain't trying to suck off Uncle Sam, because Donald Trump's done that enough and sucked him dry to a point where doing it nowadays is kind of tasteless. You can so easily see the difference between the attitude to innovation between the UK and the USA. The UK is much more risk averse, whereas the USA is much more risk adventurous, and Americans just fucking go for it, you know? And that's the way it should be. A rolling stone gathers no algae. Figuratively, of course, because the PhD ball that I'm rolling on is gathering plenty of algae. Literal algae, actual physical algae, I mean. And we're gonna roll this stone straight over Indiana Jones' ass. Anyway, pardon me, I got off on a tangent. In this module, I scored 76, which is a clean top grade, because in the UK, the highest grade at university you can get is known as a first or a 1-1, and that's 70%. And once again, I did it with no extra help from him, just a little bit of rapport built in addition to his great teaching. And what do you know? The first time outside of the chemical engineering department, not even that far, just in the broader engineering department, the first time, and I knock it out of the park. So now it came to exam study leave in April 2016, and I also had a big coursework which involved calculating the mass balances for a chemical plant. I decided to experiment with Excel's solver function, which is very little known about with it, but is extremely useful. But I was just getting to know it, and I didn't know that there was a little glitch, maybe because not a lot of people use it so they don't update it too much. So let me explain the Excel glitch to you. In any numerical optimization run, you have your variables, which are the things whose values get changed to affect the objective function, which is the thing you want to maximize or minimize or set to a certain value. Based on those things you can change. Like, for example, you might want to affect different parameters to affect the cost of something, to give a really general example, right? So the problem is that if that equation is divided by a variable, and that variable has the number 0 passed through it, you get a divided by 0 number, because that's mathematically impossible. Well, technically it's infinity, but you know, for the sake of numerical computations, it's a glitch, right? So, basically, even if you'd constrain that variable to never be 0, the glitch was that it would still be 0 sometimes. So even though I'd constrain it away from 0, make sure ask it not to try 0, it would still try 0, so I would keep getting divided by 0 errors. So because of that glitch, and the demands of the coursework, and the demands of a natural second-year chemical engineering degree, and the added pressure I had to compensate for my previous bad grades, I kind of melted under the pressure, and the coursework took longer, and that really ate into my exam time. So when it came to exams, I studied and prepared, but I went guns firing. I had a one-track focus on doing the exam, and my perception of presentation went out the window. So what I would do in a lot of cases would jump between different questions. It's like, for example, I would answer 4B, then randomly go 2C re-answered, then go to question 5A, then 1D re-answered, right? And that presentational problem would end up costing me, which I would get to in just a moment. I almost forgot to mention that the pressure was added to even more by my desire to really understand the content, even though the quality of teaching really didn't facilitate it. You know, I always have been and still am just fixated on saving the world. Back then, even now, to my detriment and to my benefit. So yeah, once again, that added to the pressure because the content was just not designed for that understanding. More so memorization. Part of me really went out of my way to understand the content in case out-of-the-box application-based questions would come up, similarly to in A-level. But obviously, I overdid it with the way I studied in a way which was mismatched for what the time provided was for to study the exam and the difficulty of the exam. And yeah, that would turn out to bite me in the ass. So yeah, multiple sources of pressure really amounted and fucked my presentation up, even if I didn't necessarily get stuff wrong, or at least too wrong. After exams, we had a big engineering design assessment called How to Change the World, which was as exciting as it sounded. This is where the real engineering started, and this is where I really found myself as an engineer, because engineers design, they don't do exams. You know, that's the true test of an engineer's ability, to design, not just recite things on a paper. If we lived in a world where there were exams and study materials which really facilitated understanding and then tested understanding in exams, then I would change my tune and I would, say that exams are a good measure of ability. But we're not living in that world right now, unfortunately. So for this assessment, we were placed in multidisciplinary teams of multiple different types of engineers. There was me, one other chemical engineer, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and one, I think she said she was a political scientist. But yeah, she was there. Not sure why, but hey, she was there. No disrespect, obviously. You know what I'm saying, right? So our task was to alleviate energy poverty in a Syrian refugee camp. And we had free reins. We could do it by any means necessary as long as the engineering calculations worked out and the design decisions were justified. So here's where my idea came in. I realized that although deserts are also really fucking hot in the day, they can also get really fucking cold at night to an extent where there's actually snow in some deserts, which is known to happen in the Middle East, because obviously the brief was for a Syrian refugee camp, specifically a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan, right? So I convinced the team, let's go in this direction, and I designed some heat insulation panels, which basically did double duty, keeping heat out in the day and keeping heat in the night. So here's the kicker. This engineering assessment was also a competition, and somehow our team actually won for the energy department, and I was so surprised. Like, I remember the moment where they were reading out the description of the winning project in the energy category, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's what we did. Then they were like, Team A, and I was like, ain't no way this happened to me. I've been I was about to call myself a slacker. Like, where's my self-respect? I just didn't have a level playing field. But in design, it was much more level. The fact that we won really honed in and drilled into me and taught me that engineering is not necessarily about rocket science. At least engineering innovation is not necessarily about rocket science. Sometimes it's playing chess really smartly with standard pieces. But yeah, it really dawned on me that when it came to real engineering and design, I was pretty damn good. So yeah, summer holidays came and shit was good. I was vibing and shit was good until it stopped being good. Unfortunately, my dad had what may have been the angriest alcoholic episode ever, and one thing led to another, and unfortunately there was a big argument between me and my cousin's family because I requested backup from my uncle, who just dismissed it and just told me to piss off. So I ended up roasting him really bad. In fact, I'm gonna tell you what I said. I might as well tell you. I told him that if his dad, i.e. my granddad, was still alive, that he'd be ashamed of him. Yeah, I went in, man. So naturally, me and my cousins for at least a month were not on speaking terms, as you could expect. As if that wasn't bad enough, my exam results did come back, and almost all of the exam-based modules came back as fails due to failed exams. You know, apart from that Advanced Sustainable Systems module, which was a first-class score. There was no query regarding the strange presentation and my neurodiverse condition. They were just classed as fails at the time. So they explained to me that unless an answer is crossed out, it's always the first answer marked, when I was used to it being the last answer marked from high school and A-levels, which does make more sense, because that's the whole point of writing another answer. But unfortunately, in the exam, under the pressure I was one-track minded, and crossing the first answer out just kind of skipped my mind. Not ideal, but I don't think it's worth just casting someone off like that the way they did, you know? Especially when I'm paying them £9,000 each year. I asked for a remark on that basis and it was denied, saying that they've been marked several times, and I was actually urged to consider whether the course was right for me and strongly encouraged by my personal tutor to drop out. Let me tell you, thank fuck I didn't, because I am damn good at this degree, having learned that from my master's and the PhD I'm doing right now. They then explained to me that my only options were either to abandon or resit the modules, either with or without attendance. I asked once again for that guidance from an in-department mentor, and I was just rudely told that they've honored my support plan. Now let me explain that to you, right? They denied repeatedly the guidance that I asked for, and they said, we can give you extra exam and coursework time. So obviously you begrudgingly take it because, you know, it's not enough, but it's better than absolutely nothing. Then they turn around and said, we've done everything then they turn around and tell me that they've done everything I asked for. Like, fucking, what do you even call that, man? I'm just gonna call it what it is. It's fucking corporate bullshit. UCL, it wouldn't be very smart or ethical for you to come after me and try and silence me for speaking out about the negative experience I had there. But if you're gonna do it, yeah, come try me. So here's where things get a little bit better. So at the end of the summer, one of the exams was remarked from a fail to a pass, even after they said that they'd been marked several times. And one of the other exams was never a fail to begin with. It was just one of the courseworks. So it basically went from resitting 4 failed modules to 2.5, which was much more doable to, resit the year without attendance, given that with attendance, I would have had to pay. So, they really stressed to me that people who resit without attendance, they tend not to do very well. They either just scrape a pass or they don't even make it past those resat exams. Whereas, resitting without attendance, yeah, I don't have to pay, but obviously there's a much lower incidence of passing. I'm going to spoil it for you in advance. I did decently in the exams I resat. Much better than just scraping a pass that they said is the best case scenario. What can I say? I knew what I was capable of. But I will get to that later on in the video. I got to go through things chronologically, right? I kind of thought to myself, I've been in education from age 0 to 21, right? You know what? A gap year to just recover and recuperate whilst doing a little bit of work to clear those modules on the side. I think that year sounded great to me, so I went for it. And yes, this does mean that by the time I finished my degree, I was part of not 1, not 2, but 3 different year groups. But hey, that's what happens when you leave someone in the dark who had a different leveled playing field and just tell them to get on with it. That's what happens. I don't blame myself. And once again, I can say that from my master's experience in a different place, which was ranked higher, where I did much better with no extra help. So let me get on to that year, right? The first few months, which I just spent relaxing and recovering apart from doing those modules, it was heaven, it was therapeutic, it was healing, just popping my headphones on and going to the park and swinging on the swings at lunch and just being in my own world. It was what I needed from all the craziness of the past few years, and it really hit the spot. And man, it was just phantasmagorical, which is probably not even a real word, but hey. And most of my courseworks were coming back high, like 90% and 80%, and the ones that came back a little bit lower were still decent, around 60%, and those were the ones where I needed more guidance, where naturally I was disadvantaged by resitting without attendance. But hey, I still got through them, man. Here's another disappointing thing about the UCL experience, right? Some of my courseworks were just previous year's exams questions recycled, right? They would always tell us, we don't give you the answers to exam questions, so you can figure them out yourself and grow as an engineer. When now you know why they don't give answers. I think they took the recycling concept and component of chemical engineering a little bit too far and a little bit too literally or in the wrong direction. With my grades so far, I unfortunately was ineligible to apply for chemical engineering internships, so I worked some odd jobs, namely being a warehouse and shop floor assistant at a construction supply company, and yeah, I just ranked up some work experience, added to my skills, made some cash, and yeah, made a use of myself. But get this right. In March 2017, there was the annual Chemical Engineering Department boat party, which by the way was all ran by students, not them damn teachers. But yeah, so the boat party came and it was the first time that I went. Right, and let me tell you, it was a blast, man. I was looking so fly, check this picture out. Plus, right, people from the year group that I was in currently, they were all so happy to see Plus, people from the year group that I was in, they were all so happy to see me. They were like, oh my God, Vinay, it's you. They were taking pictures of me and dapping me up because obviously they hadn't seen me because I, was out of that third year. And the thing is, right, I thought because I had a bad reputation for not getting good grades, right, that people, weren't a fan of me and weren't happy to see me. But maybe after they saw me being part of the winning team in the energy category of that How to Change the World assessment competition last year, maybe it changed. But yeah, I was showered with clout and dapped up, and people were happy to see me. On top of that, there were people from the very first year, that current year, and future people from the year group that I was going into. So in many ways, it was a crossroads. So now, back onto exams. 2 of the exams I had to resit, they came back decently at scores of 60 and 64%, which were both the second highest grade, a 2-1, which is, I guess, equivalent to a B. I'm not sure how the grading conversion system works exactly, but yeah. And bear in mind, that's when they said that most people don't pass the resits without attendance. So I silenced the critics, man. A bit of a funny thing did happen with the department again, as usual. So basically, one of these modules, the one I scored the 64 in, was from a different department, right? But at first, when I got the score, it came back as 44. So I had 44 and 60. And I thought to myself, I calculated my grades for this module, right? The courseworks were high and the exam went pretty well. So I know that this had to be a mistake. So I contacted the admin and they were like, okay, we'll check for you, but it does look right. And I was thinking to myself, bullshit. So I contact someone from that outside of department themselves, that other department. And within a few weeks, they come back to me saying the score is actually 64 and not 44. So what the flying fuck happened with the chemical engineering department, man? Why can I never catch a break from these guys? What can you do? I found this out when I was on holiday in Canada at the time, where I was in either Jasper or Banff National Park. So when I found out, yeah, man, I had hella shots that day in the forest with some bears. Yeah, and these bears like to get lit, so Goldilocks, don't come round this way, would ya? By the way, that was only a joke. I do not support giving animals alcohol.